Thanks for joining.
I'm Reese,
I'm Joe. You're listening to Poly by Nature,
the podcast where you can have your cake and eat it too.
You sent me a text today, and it simply said, "You okay?" Question mark.
How you feeling?
How you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear you. Can you please talk into the mic because I can't hear you?
I said, how you feeling?
Right. And it almost caught me off guard because it is not a question that I get asked often. When that question was asked to me or portrayed to me, I was like, how am I feeling? And it went I went through a rabbit hole of things when my thoughts. I was like, so how am I feeling? How am I doing emotionally, physically, spiritually, on all these different levels? And then I was like, wait, why is she asking me how I'm feeling? Is there something, because she's not feeling good? Is she asking me how I'm feeling? Is this a way for me to maybe ask her how she's feeling? So I immediately went to, I'm okay. And then I went to immediately, how are you feeling? Because I didn't know how to answer that question. But like, it felt good hearing that question being asked, because it's like, and there's no knock on you, but you don't ask me that question often. And so it was like, it was a kind of a good moment. It felt good. And so if I can take back one thing of something I learned today, it was like, oh, somebody asked me how I feels good. So with that being said, I just want to roll into the episode. How are you feeling?
I feel good.
Yeah.
I do that a lot.
It's a dynamic in your voice. Is that a real I feel good, or is that just like a generic I feel good?
I feel good now that we're recording, because sometimes I do have anxiety just leading up to the recording.
Yeah.
So once we sit down in the chairs and it's like, all right, everything's set, everything's recording, everything's on,
Right.
we're good.
No, I give you that.
Yeah.
You also promised the kids we're going to go to Chili's tonight.
Yeah.
And that's like the backwoods of food to me.
It's good for a quick bite.
Ugh. It just, I don't know. It's like the
with
menu.
The kids.
Yeah, their menu, it reminds me of a kid's menu, but whatever. I guess if it gives us opportunity to have some family time, which I actually crave and I've been loving lately. I enjoyed the family time. The connection with the kids this week for me has been a little bit more connected. I've been having some opportunity to hang with them differently because you and I were disconnected. Mm-hmm. And that leads into our show today, talking about boundaries.
We going like that?
Yeah. Because I want to get right to it. Like there's this thing about boundaries that we need to discuss today. Today's episode is about boundaries, what they are, how we live by them, how I screw them up often, and just trying to have a great conversation about those. We kind of touched on some small words of boundaries in the past, but never really dove deep into what our boundaries truly are. Never dove into what we consider our boundaries. So. That's my thought.
I think when it's actually been coming up pretty frequently recently. And I noticed that when people ask about our boundaries, it's like, well, what do we have boundaries around? And what exactly are our boundaries besides like the obvious ones that we talk about around sex and stuff like that? Right.
Can you maybe define to me what you consider a boundary? Like, what is the definition of boundary to you? Like, it doesn't have to be a formal definition, but like somebody says, hey, what's a boundary to you? What does that mean? Like, how do you break it down for somebody simply?
For me, a boundary is like a limit for me, like something I won't tolerate.
Okay.
It just pertains, it's me, it's my preference. I choose not to participate in this, or I choose not to be with someone who has these type of activities or does these things or something like that.
Yeah. I was thinking about the word boundary all day today because you sent me a kind of a layout of what you wanted to speak about tonight. And I was thinking of a boundary. If we're on this path, we're walking this path, the boundaries would be like these rocks on the side of the path that you shouldn't just climb over, right? Like the path is so perfect.
You're so visual.
I'm very visual. But like the path is so perfect. And sometimes it's off the path, off the things that you said you want or will do. And just kind of like almost hurting yourself to get there. It's almost like I don't think there's ever a situation where crossing a boundary pays off. Like there's taking risk, there's an opportunity, you can do something great in your life. You got to take a risk. That's different. But I don't think I can correctly say that like someone crossing a boundary has ever been a positive situation.
Yeah. And I think that we normally don't reach to the point to where we cross boundaries, because a lot of situations we just communicate on for the most part.
Right.
And if there's an understanding and communication, then we're pretty good. You know, a lot of things we just get each other's preferences and perspectives. And if we're in a situation where we have to make a decision that involves our partner, we simply consider them.
Yeah.
And that's usually, usually enough.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you have to make things clear. People can't read your mind, and you don't know what's not said.
Right. I think one of the things for me is I do a lot of overthinking and underspeaking on certain situations. So I'll think things thoroughly through. If you ask me about a situation that may come up, I've already put thought into it and know how I want to move or groove. But sometimes I don't actually know how to put that into words. So when I overthink situations, they just come out as like, here's what I think. Or it's like, it's very minimal of what I say about it. Where if I actually was able to speak on how I was thinking about those things, there would be a full-on conversation of like, here's how I really want to move and groove. And here's how I really want to say some things. But it's like I'm almost afraid to have that conversation out loud because I'm like, did I put enough thought behind this before I talk about it?
Yeah, I think you do overthink.
A lot.
I think sometimes you just talk about things. Like, don't think about talking about things. Just talk about things.
Yeah.
Don't plan the conversation. Just have it.
I think I want to be prepared for conversations, especially when it comes to boundaries and situations. Like I want to be prepared to be like, okay, did I put thought into this? Am I speaking with intention to actually say the things that make the most sense? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to just come to a conversation, but like, I haven't really put much thought in this, but here's what I think.
But if you haven't put much previous thought, then everything you're saying should be genuine and honest. If you're speaking in that moment from, the heart or wherever the hell you speaking from.
Yeah, but my overthoughts don't come from like a calculated motive. I think they're from the heart. I feel like they're just cleaner lines of me saying whatever. So
before we, where are you going next? Okay, let's go into some basic boundaries.
Okay.
Some boundaries that we have. We have boundaries around communication.
Okay.
You have a boundary where you won't argue with me.
I won't. Is that a boundary? That's just
your
my
boundary.
preference.
Your boundary is I will not argue with you.
Right.
So if we get into an argument, if my tone is off, if I may call you something that I shouldn't call you, if it's too negative, you're like, I'm not having this discussion with you. I will not argue. And a lot of times you'll leave the area wherever we are and we'll just come back to it later.
Yeah.
That's a boundary.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah. I think it has made our discussions a lot better.
I hate arguing. Like I
know. But see,
time on it.
I don't see it as an argument. I see it as a debate. I see it as, okay, let's get this figured out. And yes, I do, do a little too much sometimes, but yeah. I
don't know. I don't want to waste time arguing with my best friend sometimes, right? And so it's just like, I also need to know that I hear what you're saying. I understand that. I don't want to just try to like give you my point of view. Let's fix this fast. Sometimes I know that you need to vent and have that situation. And I'll let you go to a certain point. But then once I feel like it's getting to a point where, okay, if you get this far, it's going to be longer to fix this problem.
Right.
Then I'm going to say, okay, let's stop this conversation for now and let me come back to it because the word doesn't feel right.
No, it has definitely made our encounters and discussion a lot more productive.
Right.
When we take a break, all right, and then just revisit the topic again later.
Yeah, that's a boundary that you gave for me. I think a boundary that I'm learning about you is in a respectful way, no just means no. Right. And like, so like, I usually try to convince you to do stuff and you tell me no. And I almost used to take it as a challenge of like, let me try to make your no a yes. And it wasn't so much like, it's not like a sexual, like you're not telling me no to sex. And I'm like, no, let me, yes. It's more like,
anything.
And so like, I always thought, well, as long as it's not sex, that's fine. No means no in sex. I took as like, that means no. But no everywhere else is like, yeah, maybe. Right. So it's like, like to give example, the kids and I were playing that silly game with the TikTok where we're smacking each other with the pita pocket and we were acting like idiots, the three of us. And so I'm like, you want to try? And you're like, no. And I'm like, you probably want to try it. So I'm like, I'm never going to hit you, but I'm like hitting it around your face. And then you're like, I don't like that, and I'm like, so it's the boundaries of me learning that saying like, when you simply just say no,
Absolutely.
it's not, it does, I never need to convince you on it. No, like try this food. No, I'm good. I'm like, it's the best food I've ever had. You're like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm just like, okay, she said no. I got it. That's one of the boundaries I'm learning about you.
Yeah. I feel like we have mutual boundaries as far as like being treated with kindness and respect.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I think a little while ago, maybe a year or two ago, I used to tell you that I didn't feel like you treated me like you even liked me.
Right.
And I used to say, just be nice to me, be kind to me, like treat me like I'm someone you love.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were really like working on our relationship. And that has made such a big difference.
Yeah.
Just like, because sometimes I tell you, like, I'm not your buddy. I'm not somebody that you work with. I'm not one of your guys. Like, treat me like your girlfriend. Like, treat me like I'm someone you make love to or something. Be nice to me.
I get it.
Like, so that was something that I had to bring to your attention at some point. Just like,
Right.
treat me like I'm soft.
Right. I get it. And I enjoy the softer side of just being able to be down on that level with you and just kind of like, okay, this is what it means to have physical touch in her language. This is what it means to kind of understand where her boundaries are and kind of be in that lane and not try to get out of those lanes completely.
So boundaries are not just for poly relationships. Boundaries are for any relationship. Any relationships. If you get into any type of situations that make you feel uncomfortable, any situations that you need to take slow.
I go further back and say boundaries are for every interaction that
Yeah.
no matter who you know or if you don't know the person. You're not gonna
Absolutely.
you're not gonna walk up to somebody and disrespect them or cross a boundary that you don't even know. So
Yeah.
I think the importance of knowing boundaries, but we all know basic boundaries.
What are some examples of like in monogamous relationships?
I think there's probably a line that you know that you can't cross in a monogamous relationship. It could be friendships of the other sex or the opposite sex, I should say. It could be texting. It could be, it could be a lot of basic things in there that may be in a poly side that we actually don't think heavily on.
A lot of monogamous boundaries are unsaid and assumed
Very much
to be known.
Yeah, you just know you don't do certain things, and there's then that level of like, am I doing something wrong if I?
Which is why there needs to be boundaries, because there needs to be clarification around what's accepted and what isn't accepted. Like,
yeah,
are you willing to be in a relationship with someone who has friends of the opposite sex?
In a monogamous relationship?
A monogamous relationship.
In the beginning of our monogamous relationship, no, I wasn't. Like, I didn't want you having guy friends.
No, neither one of us.
Right? Like, I don't think you wanted me having female friends because there was of course, there was some insecurity in there. And there was we didn't really discuss boundaries, so we didn't know what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. So
right.
You're in a relationship with someone and you never discussed a boundary, but then you assume that like once you cross that boundary, why'd you cross the boundary? Well, I never knew. Like I never knew that line was there. I never knew that there was somewhere it wasn't one to go. I mean, I've used that a ton of times, but
that you didn't know.
I didn't know.
You use that all the time.
I know I'm supposed to do that. I thought I was good doing what I was supposed to do. If you can clearly discuss what your boundaries are with your partner or partners and say, here's what I need from you. And here's what I need for you to have me feel safe in your company.
Yes.
Then it's a basic conversation. It's not an easy conversation though, to be honest with you. Telling people what your boundary is, even if you're not in a relationship or are in a relationship, even if it's just a friendship, they're so vitally important to have boundaries in all aspects of relationships, in all aspects of friendships.
Yes.
Because if you don't, people will cross them and not think that they're hurting you because they're like, maybe I didn't know those things. Or maybe you didn't tell me those things, in that real world.
Yeah. So boundaries are not supposed to be a negative thing.
Right.
It's not supposed to be like you controlling someone or trying to control a situation or manipulate someone. And it's not like a way to try and keep someone from hurting you.
Right.
It's like, it's a way of making sure that you're safe, healthy, your mental health, your sanity, like I said, things you will and won't tolerate, things you will and won't participate in.
Yeah. Protecting your neck.
And it's the person setting the boundary. It's my job with my boundaries to make sure that my boundaries are communicated and confirm that they're understood.
Do boundaries have flexibility in them, or are they kind of like a brick
I
wall?
think that they grow with you.
Okay.
You can definitely revisit and change and adjust to situations, whatever you're going through. But in any moment in a relationship, if I have a boundary, that boundary stands. That boundary doesn't bend. It is what I have it as at that moment.
But it could
Yeah,
evolve.
you
at some
can
point.
absolutely.
I respect that.
What are your boundaries around sex with me and you, with other partners, with adding partners?
And on my side specifically,
Your boundaries.
my boundaries with me and you and other partners. So I don't have much boundaries on sex with you and I, honestly. Like on that level, I don't think there's anything that we haven't done or said or, sexually on that level.
I have boundaries around sex as far as between me and you, between me and someone else, between, how I protect myself when you add a partner and stuff like that. So I choose to have protected sex in the beginning when a new partner is added. So if I have another partner, then I would choose to have protected sex with them and with you. If you add another partner, then I would like to have protected sex with you and hope that you're having protected sex with them.
Right.
So I want to be protected in the beginning when a partner is being added.
Mm-hmm.
And if one of my partners decides that they're not with that, then that's where my boundary comes in. And it's like, I'm not going to have sex with you unless it's protected.
Right. Because there's an honor system there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a clue if anyone's telling the truth or not. You just have to hope that they are. And so,
What do you mean telling the truth?
well, like if you have a partner that you're sleeping with, he says, "Yeah, I have another partner, and I'm sleeping with them, and I'm using protection." But if he's lying or something like that,
Well, I'm saying, I can't control that. That's why I say I choose to protect myself in the beginning when my partner is adding a new partner.
I got you. Because I don't know. In my world, it's knowing your status and talking about your status before you have sex. It's the idea that there really shouldn't be a big question mark because we had this discussion of what's going on at all. To give you reference on this now, I think I used the word intimate partner in the past. And in my world, intimacy was like, yeah, I'm having sex with somebody, right? And so like, instead of just me saying, yeah, I'm having sex with somebody, I'm like, yeah, so I got an intimate partner. And even just kind of brushed past it and kind of didn't really kind of dive into it just because I didn't want to have that conversation maybe. And it wasn't that I didn't want to have the conversation. It was just like, I don't know. Maybe I felt like, okay, should I be doing this or is it something I even want to do? Doesn't make sense for me right now. And there was all these little question marks in there. So the intimacy that happened, I just kind of said intimate partner. And I think you were taking it as intimacy as like, oh, maybe you're holding hands and kissing.
I just didn't dive into intimacy. I don't even honestly don't remember the conversation.
When that happened, the idea was like, okay, be straight with everything. And then intimacy should be, I guess it should be enough in my world is what I thought. But what it wasn't clear communication. It wasn't me saying, I now have a new sexual partner and I'm moving accordingly to how we spoke. I'm protecting myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, because I didn't dive into that, you didn't even think about the idea, okay, now I need to start using protection. And so I broke a boundary by not being super clear so that you felt like you had a choice to then say, okay, well, make sure anytime we do something, protect up. And so I just assumed because it said intimacy and then there wasn't really much of a discussion behind it. I'm like, okay, so things are fine. And like, okay, when we have sex, you didn't say anything. And I'm like, okay, but that you didn't say anything wasn't correct by me. It should have been me saying, wait a minute. I thought if you said if we have an intimate partner, if I have an intimate partner, that you were going to want me to be protected. Why aren't we being protected? And so I should have looked at the situation and said, wait a minute, something's not lining up because you have these boundaries. And like you said, you don't flex on the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
You have these boundaries in place. I respect your boundaries. I should have seen the red flags up and I should have been like, wait a minute, we are having unprotected sex,
right?
which we would do all the time. But you said the opposite. And I'm like, okay. And so that's where, when the beginning, when you asked me, well, wait a minute, are you having sex with somebody? I'm like, well, yeah. 'Cause I was so confused because I'm like, well, I thought you knew.
Yeah. And for me, I'm always about be direct with me. Be
Right.
straight, like say the words you need to say. Don't say soft words.
Right.
Say the real words.
That's the hip hop in you, not the R&B in me.
So that I know exactly what you're saying. And like I said, I don't want it to be a controlling thing. Like you don't have to tell me when you have sex with somebody. You don't even have to tell me when you plan to. You don't have to tell me after. But before you come to me for sex, I should know very well that you have added another partner
Mhm.
so that then I can move the way that I want to.
Right.
And it's not, I want to make sure that it's not looked at negatively, like I said in the past. Like boundaries are a good thing. And I want it to be a positive thing. And I know that you don't like using condoms. So
With you. Like, don't put it out there like, I don't like using condoms with
I
nobody
don't know
else.
the difference
You don't know the difference of what?
of you using condoms with me versus you using condoms with somebody else.
Because you are my true intimate partner. So there's a connection that I just find different, I guess. Like condom sex is okay, but like sex with you without a condom is preferable.
Well, like I said, I know that you don't like condoms. So I wanted to make like the transition of you bringing in a new partner like a easy thing, a good thing. So we went out and we bought a whole bunch of condoms and different materials, different brand and textures. And every now and then we grab one and try it. And I'm like, well, let's rate this on a scale and how it feels for you and how it feels for me. And, you know, what's the finish like? And
I'd love to know what people like
their favorite condoms.
Like, what is your favorite? Because I've been just like, these suck. I'm sorry.
So I knew that we were coming to the point where you were adding another partner. So I was working on us finding condoms that we actually enjoyed so that the process would be seamless.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the communication wasn't there. And 2 weeks after, you're already sleeping with another person and you didn't tell me, and we haven't been using protections the way I really like to.
Right.
It was just kind of confusing. Like, where did I miss that?
You didn't. I mean, you didn't miss anything. What you missed was me stepping up and saying, "Wait a minute, why are we doing this without protection?" You missed a partner projecting forward the things that should have been done, and just saying, "Okay, it's okay if things are this way," and not saying why. If you don't let people cross your boundary, my own personal boundary, then why am I allowed to cross your boundary?
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me reference that I had to check myself, because I'm like, it's me cheating you out the opportunity to tell me, hey, these are my boundaries and stay in these lines. It's me cheating you out of the understanding of like
the opportunity to choose to use protection.
Correct.
Keep me informed, or don't keep me informed. Just keep me informed before you actually are physical with me.
No, and
like
I think
at
it's the
some
first.
point.
It's the first over the ladder.
But I don't have to know. Like, it's not I need to be informed at all times of what you're doing and who you're like. I don't. But I just want to know what's going on with my body.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Respectfully. And I understand that. And again, I belittled it in the beginning because I was like, well, I use protection. Why are you freaking out? And then it was like, but I get it because you want to have that choice. And I want to make sure you always have that choice. I want to have that choice. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we don't want to have a feeling of like, man, I don't have that comfort of being able to choose what feels right in these boundaries and these paths and all that good stuff that we're going through. So it was like, I respect it. I apologize. I apologized a few times. And
I want you to listen, to understand, to comprehend what I want from you, and just take the lead.
Yeah.
When we come up to these situations, I don't want to worry about condoms. You the one with the penis. I don't care about condoms. Like, you figure it out. Like, you handle that. That's on you.
Right.
You bring it up. Hey, babe, we using condoms this week or next week. For the next month, we using condoms. Bet. I don't even care to question.
Fair.
Like, just handle it.
Yeah.
So that I can relax and I can like let my guard down and know that you are protecting us. That's what I want. Like, I want it to be one less thing that I have to worry about.
Done. I got it. Say less. You'll never have to speak on this again.
I hope not.
But I will be able to honestly just tell you, hey, I'm moving in a situation that could feel like it's about to in a week or a day or an hour, but going here
We can
forward,
even start early.
let's just start throwing some condoms on.
Mhm.
Pack it up.
And you know me, I even tell you, if your partner, and this is completely optional, if your partner shares their status,
Mhm.
current testing, we don't even have a disruption. We don't even have to do the condom thing. But that's completely voluntary because your partner has no obligation to me.
Right. Yeah, but you know what? I'd rather still. I mean, I get that now. I don't have a problem doing that, but I think personally, I just rather wear protection.
Okay, I like your boundary then.
Okay. I'm not saying it won't change, like you said.
You definitely gonna change.
No, honestly, I take that. No, you're right. I probably will change. It hasn't to cross that path with someone else without protection now from my past. I'd have to be in a situation that maybe feels different.
I'm not talking about you and someone else. I'm talking about you and me.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait a minute.
No, I'm saying, you know how I want to use protection in the beginning.
Yeah. I thought you meant like me going out with somebody. I'm like,
if your partner offers up their testing,
Yeah.
which I said is completely voluntary
Yeah.
because they have no obligation to me, then me and you don't have to go through the
okay,
condom
I get it.
thing.
I thought you were
is what
like,
I'm
you can
saying.
have sex with somebody. I'm like, yeah, it's not really my thing.
Wait, but then you said, well, maybe I will change my mind.
I said, but I would have to be with a partner that I'm really like, this is my partner. Like, this is my.
I can see that. Okay.
You're like,
long term.
Long-term partner. I'm like, did you just offer me up unprotected? I was like, oh no, that is not me.
Do you feel like you have a an understanding of my boundaries, our agreements, and stuff like that with our, like, in any area of our
I
relationship?
think that we have a very fluid way of knowing things. And I try not to cross much of anything. Excuse me. I try not to cross much of anything when it comes to boundaries.
Mhm.
And when I do, I always feel like I don't think I've ever crossed a boundary purposely. I think I tripped over it. Like,
Always. It's always a like, oops,
it's
I
always,
didn't mean
yeah, it's
to.
never like a malicious, like, yo, guess what I'm about to do to you?
Do you think boundaries need to be put in writing?
I do. Like, the more that I'm reading this book that I'm reading, the importance of writing things down just for reference, because you can have a conversation, but like you and I can have the same conversation every day for the next 100 days. It'll fluctuate or move a
Mhm.
little bit every conversation, right? Writing it down just puts it in paper and says, okay, here's what it is. It's like, but you don't want it to come across as a rule sheet.
Yes, something that doesn't change or
Right.
yeah.
So
But it's I mean, you write your goals down, you write your values down
you
and
want
stuff like
reference.
that.
It's a
So
reference sheet.
write it in pencil so it can be erased.
Is there any boundaries that you have right now that you think you want to change or tighten up or loosen up on? Anything that you feel like?
I don't think we have many. I
Yeah.
think we have a lot of agreements,
Yeah.
things that we both agree on,
Yeah.
you know.
That's a big question for a lot of people. What's your boundaries?
Yeah.
What can't you do? What can you do? And it's just like, and we kind of say, well, we just try to do to each other what we want done to ourselves.
Mhm.
And even then, that by saying that, even the times that I've misstepped, I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't want that done to me.
We talk things through. We have preferences on how situations should be handled,
Mm-hmm.
and it's up to our partner to take us into consideration on how they go ahead and handle that.
Yeah. I love the idea of just being able to be heard
Mhm.
and understood, but then it's just as important for me to hear and understand what's coming my way too. So no, I just think that we talk about our boundaries a lot better. I think I need to become very clear on things as I kind of walk and talk through this journey and lose that fear of like, man, if I say this, will she think of me differently? Or if I say this, will this change our boundary? Or am I crossing the boundary by saying this? Or and not even,
You're better off speaking.
yeah. And it's not even like saying like, it's not even saying a boundary, like I want to do this and being afraid of what comes from it. But maybe it's just being able to say it and say, okay, it is what it is. Just come home and be like, this is what it is. Can I move in this boundary lane
Well,
correctly?
that's just a conversation. Your boundaries is like we said, your limits.
Yeah.
That's just having a conversation and communicating.
Push it to the limits is all I think right now.
push it to the limit.
Like, how far can I push a boundary? And I'm like, I
Shut up.
shouldn't be pushing any boundaries.
At all.
I'm like, let's stop right there. No, I enjoyed this conversation. It was necessary to talk about. I think it helps cement what we feel we should be in our relationship when it comes to certain situations. I know going forward how to move and groove things differently. And I'm learning in this journey every day about like how to really kind of talk things out. The other thing I want to how to lead. The other thing I want to say that I enjoyed this week, even though I thought we had a rough week, but it wasn't really rough. But one, I enjoyed your tactfulness when it came to discussing what made you feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. I respected the idea that you wanted space or needed space. But then I loved the forgiveness that came not far after. Because it's like, I think in my past, when I mess up or I do something, it's like, I did it and I was like, okay, well, how long is this going to be? And then I didn't really necessarily care what the situation was going to fold out to be. I just like, okay, how long is it going to be until we can be cool again, right? And in this situation, I was like, man, I didn't really like the way I moved at all because I didn't need to move the way I moved. I could have just been more clear and concise on things. And so in the beginning, I was like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Then I went to, okay, I didn't do what I would want done to me. Then I went to, ooh, that wasn't really a good move by me. And once then we got to that situation, I was like, okay, I wasn't looking for the end result to be like, how fast can we get back to being normal? I got to the result where I was like, okay, how fast can we get back to being on our journey together? Mm-hmm. And so like, I just appreciate you coming to me and saying, this is what you did wrong or made me feel not good in my boundary space. This is what I need to be able to move forward. And then just saying, okay, and if you can kind of hear me on those things, then I should be okay. And I'm like, okay. And I enjoyed that we had a situation. Mature, yeah. Mature. We had a situation. We acknowledged the situation. We separated for a moment to say, how do we figure out the situation separately? And then you're able to come back and have a conversation and then say, I hear you. I understand it. I respect it. I got it. And both ways. And it's like, okay. Because in the day, neither of us are going to do anything to really, like, I'm never going to maliciously wake up like, you know what, today's the day I'm going to show her something and be that bad person. I'm never going to do that. I don't know about you sometimes.
You think I'm mean?
Sometimes. Sometimes I think you have that in you. It becomes from that person, though, of like, I don't argue, right? So
because I can argue with you.
But you don't argue with me. You just argue at me. But there's a difference. Like you wouldn't make it in a relationship with somebody who argued. You know why? Because
I lose?
No, because you're stubborn and you don't know how to stop. So if you had another person that was an arguer who would not stop,
because I need clarification.
It's not even about clarification.
We need to
even when the argument is true, right? I can acknowledge him like, yo, you're right. You arguing, blah, 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 right? Wait a minute. See, right there, the head shaking no. I could argue, you could be arguing with me and I'm like, okay, I get it. We're done. And you're like, you know what? We ain't done. And I'm like,
because that don't sound like we done. That sounds like sarcasm or trying to sweep it under the rug.
It's not. It's the same reason why I laugh at funerals. Awkward conversations.
You know what?
Anything you need to do to close out this episode?
I needed this episode to for us to talk, for us to have a good discussion, a positive discussion, and so just get back on track.
Yeah, a quick reset.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
And connect with us on social media. You can find our links in the description.